one of the early mistakes that I made in fundraising was I was asking people to do me a favor.
Exactly.
When in reality, they were doing themselves a favor, right? And I was giving them the opportunity to do something that they didn't have the ability to do. They either didn't have the time, they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the connections, whatever the case may be, they were unable to accomplish what I could. And when I changed that mindset and said, you know what, guys, this is a great opportunity for all of us to make some money, and I have the expertise, they said, yes, you do. And I have this opportunity that you guys have an opportunity to really make some good money. And they were able to see that.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec and really all over in Canada and really all over in North America and wherever you are in the world. So today it is a pleasure and an honor to have my friend Shannon Robnett here on the show. Hi, Shannon. Welcome to the episode.
Alex, how are you, man? It's been a while.
So I know it almost looks like Alex, but it's Excel. Same letters, different order, but It's okay. No problem, my friend. Before we go any further, today is packed. We have some good stuff prepared for you, listeners. And before we go any further, remember that you can help a friend by sharing this episode with them. There's other real estate investors around you who need golden nuggets, who need advice, and this episode is packed of it. So share this episode with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. Like, subscribe, and send us some feedback and some questions if you have any. I'm in the process of planning all of next year, or at least Q1. So if there's topics or experts you'd like to hear from, please let me know. And that's how Shannon got here today, because Shannon is a developer, syndicator, plenty of experience, builder, now philanthropist, and loves to travel all around the world to find opportunities. And, in going into Shannon's story, you're going to hear the different stages. But first of all, let's start at the beginning. So Shannon, can you kind of share with us, like, how in the world did you get started in real estate investing?
Well, at the time, it didn't seem like I was very lucky, but I was born into a real estate family. My father was a builder turned developer. My mother was a third generation real estate broker. And I grew up, always working on the projects on the weekends and hearing that my dad owned this building. And all that meant to me was I had to go work there for free. And, my parents retired at 50 with cash flow after building an empire that sustained them 100%. And I saw that, and I was trying to find my way, and I started building single family homes, and I really quickly realized I didn't like homeowners, and I didn't like, hearing about it. The dishwasher wasn't working and you go over there and they just forgot to close it properly, or, just all those things. And so I took my business into the commercial world, where I began to build large scale projects like police stations, fire stations. We did schools, gymnasiums, medical facilities, warehouse, industrial parks. And I found that every time I got done with a job, I quit getting paid. It was really weird, right?
What do you mean you couldn't get paid?
Well, yeah, you build the building and you're done with the building and now you stop getting paid. But the owner was still getting that revenue stream, right? He was still getting the benefit of all that. And so in 2001, I also built my very first industrial complex. I still have 3 of the original tenants in that project. And that has proved to be the secret, right? And then I started down the road and I said, okay, I'm going to build this project. I'm going to build that project. Well, my first project that I built, I raided all the capital out of my company. I took every nickel I could get my hands on and I did the project. And for 12 months, I was incredibly uncomfortable because I had no capital, right? I had no cash in my business and it really wasn't a good idea. And so then when I started to do my next project and look at my futures, I started to partner with a guy or a gal that had no time, no understanding of real estate, or a very small understanding, but they knew they needed to grow their money and they needed tax protection. And so I began to partner with them in kind of single check writer situations. He's got $500,000. We can do this project. He's got $1 million. We can do this project. And I found myself in 2017, My project had scaled to the size that we were doing a 180 unit apartment complex, and I had a single check writer that wrote a check for $19 million. And I realized that I was really stuck. I was really stuck because if I didn't find another guy or family office like this that would write those large checks, I was going to not be able to do my next project. On top of that, I also ran into situations where, as deals came along, we were involved in one deal, I couldn't start another deal. And so I really began at that point to explore the world of syndication and how to raise capital. And at that point, I started out very slowly. I went backwards. I raised $1.8 million for my first syndicated deal. And if your listeners don't know, it's simply syndication is just a fancy word for partnership.
Exactly.
And in that partnership, there's the general partner or the sponsor, and he does all the work. And he's got, the know-how, and he's got the project tied up. He's got all the things that he needs to do the project, but he's lacking the capital, or he wants to involve other people. And then you have the limited partners who they are exactly that. They're limited. They have limited liability because they don't sign for loans. They don't participate in any of the daily operations, the construction, any of those kinds of things. And so they have no liability as far as that goes. And so they're able to participate and receive benefit because of the agreement that they have with the general partner to not do any work. In fact, it probably works best if they do nothing but contribute to capital, because the general partner's got the idea. They've got the plan. They've got the business plan. They've got the acumen. They've got the resume. They've got the lending all lined up. And at that point, it becomes a really symbiotic partnership that allows everybody to get what they want with the expertise and the financial abilities that they have.
Yeah. And for each person, each member of the team to be able to focus on what he's good at. And if one just contributes the capital, then that's what he's good at. And his sole responsibility is contribute the capital and then keep the communication open. And then the active partner can go out and do what he's good at, which is develop and build.
And that's true. I mean, I have a lot of high net worth individuals who, doctors, surgeons, attorneys, and they're really good at doing what they do. They can generate $500, $600, $700 an hour. And for them to start managing a real estate portfolio actually means that they would be losing money. If they would just do what they do, they would be better off. And partnering with people like that and getting into groups like that has been incredibly beneficial for me, because I am my expert in my field. They are their expert in their field, and we both understand that. And in doing that, we're able to see where we can be of benefit to each other without having to know what the other one knows.
Okay. And then can you kind of describe, because you went over the evolution of the type of project and where you involved that, but getting some of those financial partners to come in with you takes time. You got to build trust and credibility. You have to do what you said you were going to do. Can you kind of walk us through some of the steps? Because in all transparency, I'm into two big projects right now for which we're going to need to be raising capital. And so I really want to learn, and I want our listeners to be able to get a glimpse of it.
Well, I think what people need to understand is people don't necessarily invest because of the project. They really truly do invest because they know, like, and trust you. And one of the ways that we've been able to do that, I think, because I got into syndication backwards, where I had a 25-year track record, right? I knew what I was doing. I could point to multiple projects that we had been involved with from start to finish. And so that allowed me to build credibility with people. It allowed people to see that, you know what, I've been doing this since, 95, really. And I've been active in the game, and I know what I'm doing. I was able to convey that to banks. Banks look at that in new development, especially. They want to know your track record. They want a resume. And I tell people all the time, I don't care if you're flipping your first house, make a resume about it, right? Yeah. If you're on your third rental, make a resume about it. Show that you're building, show that you're growing. Because, I went from a 180 unit apartment complex and a $19 million check from a family office that I was able to convey that to, but they were professional level, right? They understood what they were looking at. And then as I began to build out my resume to show the average Joe that may not be as savvy, it took me a little bit longer to get that kind of pulled together. But when I did, I was able to uh, kind of get better at conveying that. And I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of people look at, and they're saying, "Hey, you know, this is what we want. We want somebody that knows what they're doing, that is good at it." People don't invest with Merrill Lynch or Charles Schwab because they know them, but they see all the advertising, they see that they've been around for 120 years or whatever they say. And so they go with that and they say, this is what is good. These guys have been around forever. They must be good. And they may or may not be. My experience hasn't been all that awesome with those guys, not saying any particular names, just saying that this is where we're at.
Yeah.
And it's about establishing that trust. It's about establishing that relationship. And I don't think enough people take time to establish that so that people know, hey, I've done, 100 flips. I've done 50 of these. I've been involved in real estate investing for 12 years. Oh gosh, I didn't know that. And you're able to convey that and build that trust. And then people want to hear about your project.
There's two things that you said that want to make me react. Is you started with, well, when I got this family office to write me a check for 19 million, you said?
Yeah, 19 million.
That is substantial.
Yeah.
Now, you must have done something properly at the fairly beginning and early stages of your career for a family office to trust you with such an amount. That says a lot. So I was hoping we could dig a little bit more into this and then go into like the psychology of capital raising.
Well, the easy thing for me on that was that family office happened to be headquartered in my hometown. So I was able to just get the president of the family office, put him in my car, and drive him around and show him all the stuff I'd built. And when he could see that, he went, "Oh yeah, okay." And I gave him a list of owners that I'd worked for, and so he was able to see that. And just by being able to do that, I was able to establish years of credibility that allowed the opportunity to open up.
That's and that makes a lot of sense. And then connecting to what you said also earlier about why people invest with you, like they have to and trust you and know you. It's also the psychology. And the reason I say this is this weekend, or recently rather, I presented a project that I'm working on, a 60-unit development. And for me as an immigrant in Canada, I am now making it my mission to build more housing for immigrants because this country needs it. And when I went on stage and shared this with people, it's like they were attracted to the project, and some of them came up to me after. I was like, "Hey, let me know when we can partner up. I'm interested. I want to come in with you." I never talked about returns. I never talked about money. I never talked about anything other than here's my mission, here's the vision, here's what I want to do. Now, obviously, the project is going to make a lot of sense financially, but people were attracted to the idea of contributing to the housing crisis. And it really reopened my eyes to, in capital raising, it's not just about, and finding partners, I shouldn't say capital raising, we're in Canada, we have to be careful, but it's just that people invest with emotions and then they justify with logic.
Well, and that's true. And, one of the early mistakes that I made in fundraising was I was asking people to do me a favor.
Exactly.
When in reality, they were doing themselves a favor, right? And I was giving them the opportunity to do something that they didn't have the ability to do. They either didn't have the time, they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the connections, whatever the case may be, they were unable to accomplish what I could. And when I changed that mindset and said, you know what, guys, this is a great opportunity for all of us to make some money, and I have the expertise, they said, yes, you do. And I have this opportunity that you guys have an opportunity to really make some good money. And they were able to see that, right? Whereas if I was coming to them and saying, hey, you know what, Axel, if you want to help me out and invest in this project, there'll be some good returns. I could really use it because it'll help build my portfolio. The whole vibe is wrong, right? And it's not that you're selling anything, right? But we all know, as men, we all know there are ways to answer the question the right way, especially when your wife comes and asks you, do I look good in these jeans? You always know. You always know how to answer that question, right?
Of course you
But
do.
but when it's the same kind of thought process when you talk about raising capital. I have this opportunity that I'm sharing with the few people that I know can benefit from it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and it's just about how you posture yourself, how you position yourself, and how you believe in yourself.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, no one else will either.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. And I remember when that change happened in my head, and as you said, in the mindset of like, I am not the beggar, even though at the beginning I felt like that, of like, I have this great deal, but I have no money. I'll almost accept any terms. Of, wait a second, I have a fabulous opportunity, and I am going to be selecting who gets to come along on the adventure with me
Right.
by putting in some capital.
Right. And the reality is people want to partner with experts. And you don't hear experts groveling or begging. They're confident. They understand it, and they're able to concisely convey it. They know what they're offering, and that was another thing that I also learned was during that fundraising experience. A lot of people that I swore up and down would get in to this amazing opportunity didn't, and a lot of people that I didn't think would get in did.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that and you say, well, I'm going to ask my dad because, my dad loves me. He definitely trusts me. He'd definitely do this. But he also remembers when I didn't clean my room when I was a kid. Right. And to clarify, my parents are in a couple of, well, in one of my investments, but it did take 5 years of syndicating capital for them to decide that I was now capable of this, right? But I had a guy yesterday that I spoke with that I created a relationship online with through Facebook and just conversing and putting stuff there. The guy's going to invest $500,000 with us, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to do with necessarily what you think it does. Are you able to convey your expertise? Are you able to convey your track record? Are you able to convey your confidence in your deal? And if you're able to convey those three things and create that ability for people to relate to you, like you said about your conversation or your speech, then you're able to get people to understand what their opportunity is. And based on the understanding of that opportunity, they're very likely to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And to attract, instead of you being on the demand side. Now, just to understand a little bit more, how did you decide to structure your enterprise? Do you raise on a deal by deal? Have you been able to establish a fund? Because to be frank, I find it more and more difficult to raise on a deal by deal basis, and I'd love to be able to put together a big pool of capital on which we decide on the allocation and the asset class.
Well, I've tried both, and I've always found it to be better on a deal by deal basis.
Okay.
But that may be because of what I'm doing, because some of what we do um, is ground up development, and some
Mhm.
of what we do is light, very light value add. And there's really three types of investors, right? There's those that are investing for appreciation. There's those that are investing for cash flow, and there's those that are investing for tax savings, right? Now, everybody wants all three,
Yeah.
but I wanted to be 6'8" and playing in the NBA, and look what happened, right? So I'm looking at that, trying to speak to individual people with individual needs, and I found that in doing that, I can't be all things to all people in a single fund. So we have different funds. Some people want to invest for short periods of time. Funds are great for that, the way we have them set up. Some people want to invest with their IRAs and they don't want to deal with UBIT or anything like that. Funds are good for that. But by and large, most of what we do is on a per project basis because people like to know I'm invested in that, right?
Mhm.
And I have I have one investor that his idea of diversity is being in every single one of my deals, right? And
Fair
we
enough.
call him $100,000 Rob, right? Because Rob is in every single deal for 100 grand, right? And I love Rob to death. I can, we've gotten to the point now that we don't talk about the deal. When I call Rob,
Yeah.
we have a great 30-minute conversation and he says, send over the paperwork. And,
Yeah. Well,
because
why are you the funds?
yeah, we've established that, Rob's invested, Rob's gotten paid back. Rob's invested, projects have gone per plan. Rob's invested, projects have not executed perfectly, but the outcome is still very, very acceptable, because that's why people get involved with me, is because I do solve problems. That's why I'm making the money I'm making, right? And so you understand that and you build that. But understanding what your investor's looking for, so that you can build that rapport and trust, knowing that you're listening to them and you're getting them the things in the investment that they're needing out of it, not just the funds you need.
Exactly. And it's always about creating win-win situations, because otherwise they might contribute once, but your $100,000 Rob would have never come back if it didn't work out well for him. And I like that you said, like, yeah, some deals were great and they were exactly executed as planned, and some were not, but the outcome was still okay. Because what I've learned is really the moment you need to communicate even more is when things are not going well.
Yeah.
Because if your investors find out, that does break the trust. And
Yeah.
they know things aren't perfect. It's going to go sideways. Shit happens. You
Yeah.
just have to be transparent about it.
Well, and one of the things that we've done that has helped convey that, is our newsletters, right? We put
Mhm.
out a monthly newsletter, and we got the good, the bad, and the ugly in there, right? If we're behind on projects because of electrical switchgear or because of permitting, that all comes out. People know about that, right? There's adjusted timelines. We publish the schedules. We have on-site job cameras. We do a lot of things to keep that trust, because once you have that trust, I will tell you, nobody invests their first or their last $100,000 with you,
No.
right? They're always putting something with you to test the waters, and based on what you communicate, there are opportunities for more. I did have one particular investor that was pretty upset, called me after about 7 months, said, "Man, I haven't heard anything from you. I don't know what's going on with the project. I want an update." And I just asked him real quick. I said, "Hey, let's go to your spam box." And in there, he found the last 8 newsletters, and his whole demeanor changed, right?
Of course.
Because there was a problem there. He had not been getting communicated to, but
No.
we were able to solve that very quickly,
No.
because the communication had been going out. He now saw that we were diligent, and all of a sudden his trust surged with us,
No. No.
because he realized that we had been making the effort to make sure that he understood what was going on.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I can just imagine his speech on the phone, his voice decomposing, be like, "Oh, there's 7 emails over there
Yeah.
on the first of every month," or whenever you send it with the
Right.
updates, like, "I'm so sorry, man. Thank you."
Well, and it wasn't even that. He was really relieved, right?
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
just like, "Man, this is great. Okay, good. Now I'll make sure that it doesn't go to spam and we're off and running." And you just, you do those things and you build
Mhm.
the trust. I have an investor that is exiting a particular deal. He's at a different stage in his life. He's sold a business over the last 2 years, and he's wanting to adjust what's going on. And I've actually directed him to a different person, because I don't have what he wants.
Mhm.
Right? I don't have the particular type that he's looking for right now. I'm going to have something in a couple months, but I've sent him a different direction. And people look at that and they go, "Well, why did you send money away?" You never send money away. You send people where they can find value, and then they're always going to come back to you, because they understand that, hey, you know what, Shannon might not have what I want, but he's more tuned into this enterprise than I am, and he's got better access to these people. And I tell you what, that has strengthened those relationships incredibly,
Yeah.
because I'm here for their benefit, they're here for mine. We're working together on this, but we're here for each other's mutual benefit. And when you can truly put the needs of your investors above your need at the moment,
Mhm.
you'll find that it always pays dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. And then actually this is a great segue, because as you were mentioning this, are your investor pool, those who've come on board with you on those projects, did you mostly find them locally? Is it within the city, the state, or all over the US? And the reason I'm asking is because I've recently been holding a little bit more events and just getting the community together. And I find it's always magical to see what happens when you actually get all these people that might be involved in the project but don't know each other, and you
Yeah,
get them and you go to a nice restaurant, you have dinner, you have drinks, and then it's 11:30 at night and people are still there and they're chatting and they're just happy to share their
right.
experience. And
And
so how have you been able to build a community around that?
Yeah, we've done that both in person and online. We have investors in Israel. We have investors in Colombia. We have investors from several other different nations, but and we have investors from all over the United States.
Mhm.
It was kind of funny because I actually met one this weekend at an event in Las Vegas for it was a tax and asset structure seminar, and I actually met one of my investors down there that I had never met, right? And it was
Nice.
really cool because we'd met online, right? He'd followed my stuff. I think he found me on my podcast or something, and he began to build that trust. And outside of me being in direct interface with him, I was able to do that. Well, as I'm standing there talking to this other person, here comes my investor. We meet, it's great. This person now sees the credibility that I have because I'm able to uh you know wasn't planned, but here's somebody that I had never met before. We talked about the deals he's in and how it's going and all those kinds of things. And so you'd be surprised where this takes you. I also have investors that I've met locally. $100,000 Rob, introduced me to half a dozen of his friends in California, right? And
Nice.
so I've met people through people. And we keep seeing how things continue to grow that way because you're following the trail of where it takes you.
Mhm. That's a really good point. And those referrals from $100,000 Rob to six other friends in California, that is just the best thing that it
Yeah.
can ever happen from someone who's happy with his experience with you.
Well, and referrals are the best kind too because they trust Rob, right? And they know if Rob has trust in me, then
Mm.
they can instantly transfer their trust to me. And so by default, I wind up getting that. And it's been a great relationship for everybody involved. And everybody is confirming the fact that Rob does know what he's doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, really good example, man. I'm glad to have these conversations with a wise man like you, to be honest. Like this is exactly why I started the podcast, and to be able to share those conversations with others. Now, as we're getting towards the end here, if people want to know more about you and get in touch, what's the best way to do so?
The easiest way to do that is just on my website. It's shannonrobnett.com. You can find all my social media there. You can find my podcast there. You can find the episode we did there when I had you on as a guest. And you can find my calendar and book some time. We can chat about what you're doing in your investing world. Maybe there's something I can do to help you on that journey. But I love connecting with everybody there at shannonrobnett.com.
Perfect. And what's the name of your podcast?
It's the Real Estate Rundown.
The Real Estate Rundown. Okay, so if anybody listening to this wants to learn more about it, definitely go and listen to the podcast. It's full of good information, and Shannon puts a lot of time and energy into it.
Yeah. Appreciate the plug.
Of course, man. Of course. Thank you very much, and to all the listeners, as usual, research your market, make some offers, and most importantly, above all, educate yourself. Learn, 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 and surround yourself with experienced individuals. On this note, thank you for listening in today, and I'll talk to you next week. Ciao.